disclosure, and I just want to know your take on what's happening right now. I've heard you talk on Gaia too about disclosure, and you've said something that a lot of people have said. There's like two takes on disclosure. One could either be fear-based or basically hope-based. And right now, like Team Stephen Greer is pushing hope-based, 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 and then TTSA, who released these videos, who I'm grateful for. I don't hate the TTSA, but it's definitely threat-based. It's definitely fear-based, and as we've seen, is like it's always this hidden agenda of like, oh, they're a threat. That's why we need to investigate it, not because they're our space neighbors and we should just be friends. What is your take on the TTSA and Stephen Greer and what's going on with these two battles of narratives?
Good question. Well, let's first start off with the statistical reality. The statistical reality is as we get more and more species into our register, our registry of species, which there is an intergalactic registry of worlds and species that we have access to, and that every time we meet a new species and talk about trade or something, we increase our personal contact registrar. So our personal contact registry is over 1,000 species at this point, from what I understand. It's quite a few.
Oh, shit, really? I never heard that before.
It's 1,000?
It's over 1,000.
How many?
It's over 1,000. It's over 1,000. It's over 1,000.
Wow.
How do you keep all those trade deals straight?
I don't. A bunch of banking nerds with amazing computers, I imagine, have to keep track of that stuff. Right. But statistically, what we understand about the species that we have encountered, and that follows a similar statistic in the Intergalactic Registry of Worlds and Species, is that you have this breakdown that goes about 95-5. Okay? 95% of the species that we run into are, let's not use the word friendly, because not everybody you run into is like, hey, let's hug and be friends. Like, that's not, every species you run into is not necessarily...
But not necessarily evil, right? But not necessarily evil.
They would rather trade and exchange information than they would do something else. That's 95% of the species that we run into. Yeah. So, again, friendly is not the right word, but willing to talk, interact, exchange knowledge, information, possibly. Maybe you got something we need, I got something you need, and we can talk trade deal. Like, that's 95% of the species.
So the neutral.
Yeah, I like that. That's realistic. That sounds normal.
That's still a spectrum. That's still a spectrum, though, right? Of those 95%, there are some that are more trustworthy to do business arrangements with, and maybe some who are less trustworthy to do business arrangements with. So it's the spectrum. It's not a 95% of nice people who want to do business and be nice. It's 95% of the species who are willing to exchange, interact, and trade for some gain that they're going to get. It's 5%.
Does that have to do with human and souls, human energy? Is that mostly what it is, or is it actual physical stuff?
Oh, it's almost always physical stuff. Species who don't need physical things, everything. Number one, so our number one trade items are military hardware, military technology. We make great stuff, and it turns out we make better Gauss rifles and plasma rifles and spaceships and stuff than most everybody else makes. So people love our gear. So we sell military hardware, and we sell lots of it. The number two export that we export to the rest of the galaxy is beer.
What?
Beer.
Oh my God! Cantina could not be more relevant right now.
This is the type of news you break on this podcast. Yeah.
What kind of beer?
Every kind. So let me paint this picture for you, right? So Ninkasi was the Sumerian goddess of beer making, right? A little history lesson, right? But as we understand in this room, when you're talking about when you're talking about deities, ancient deities, you're talking about extraterrestrials who were from another planet. So Ninkasi, being the Sumerian goddess of beer, means that she was the girl with the Sumerians, the Sumerian space, deities who came down and said, I'm going to teach you monkeys how to make beer so we don't have to make it ourselves. So you guys can make beer for us. So she teaches humans how to make beer so we can make beer for the gods, right? Which is just space people. So beer making isn't from planet Earth. It's from out there somewhere. So the concept of beer is not a terrestrial concept.
What about
it is
wine?
A concept. Wine it's in the top 10, but it's number 2 is beer.
What?
Wine, I think, is like number 8 in the top 10 trade package there. I think it's number
tequila?
8.
What about tequila?
Hard spirits is like number 10 or number 11. It's like right off the top 10 sometimes because again, it's like it's a smaller quantity of what we can sell of distilled spirits. But
so
beer,
aliens like to
lots
party.
of beer.
I fucking love
Absolutely. There are a number of species who respond to alcohol. Number of species.
Yeah.
There are a lot of species who, like, alcohol gets people different kinds of, right? I mean, it affects people differently, but it just turns out that there's a lot of carbon-based life forms that can drink. And, and they're like, okay, they like it in some form or another.
Listen, interspecies sex doesn't happen without a little lubrication. I'm telling you.
Gross. Gross.
Wait, guys. We've tangent so fucking far.
So now, here's the question. No, we're talking about intergalactic trade. So here's the thing. We make really good beer because we're humans, and it turns out we make stuff better than almost everybody because we have this urge to make things better. So it turns out
we have good hops.
Oh, that's interesting.
No.
So other species don't have that need to constantly make something better. They don't have that.
That's correct. It's rare. We have actually developed one of the most badass spacefaring militaries in this corner of the galaxy.
Whoa! Let me stop you for a second. So what are you saying? There's like species that are millions of years ahead of us, and somehow we've jumped past them in 80 years. Is that what you're suggesting?
No, I would suggest that species that are that
creative,
old
Josh.
have gone far past the need for the kind of military technological development that we're in. I would say that there are tens of thousands of species who have only been in space for the last several centuries or the last several thousand years.
Okay, that's interesting. Okay.
So after all the craziness that happens on planet Earth, then we're going to the trajectory of what you're talking about.
However this event rolls itself out, it will change the conversation because we'll have at least a friend or a friend and a foe to have sorted out that is not of this world. And that will give us a perspective, a way of looking at the intergalactic community. So it helps people to focus that there's a bad guy. That actually helps people. That gets us not focused on
it's a basic psychological need. Yeah,
it really is. Yeah. It's basic. It's super basic. But by having that friend who says, no, it's cool, and oh, this is what you guys drink? Oh, this is really tasty. I know someone that would pay, 500 globnarks a bottle for this. And you realize that 500 globnarks is a shitload of money, and you realize that a bottle of beer can go for the equivalent trade of about $600 a bottle.
What?
Wow. So, Randy, are you part of the whole disclosure movement? I know you've said before that your brigadier general or whatever has given you permission to spill the beans or whatever. Are you part of this whole deal?
My job as the public relations officer for the command staff of United States Marine Corps Special Section is to promote their bullet points. And right now their bullet points are, this is what's happening, this is what's changing, this is where we're going. We're not in an end game here where the whole world's going to turn into Mad Max, zone, and it's all going to fall to pieces and come apart. It's going to rattle quite a bit. But there will be this significant fundamental change when all of that rattling is over. And because it's been determined, quite simply, for the social, economic survival of the planet and the people who make quadrillions of dollars a year, that we have no choice. So finally, the richest and powerfulest people in the world have said, well, I guess we have to. So, okay, we'll do it. And they have reluctantly agreed that they have to just go ahead and have disclosure. Otherwise, they're not going to make quadrillions of dollars a year. Boo-hoo-hoo. So they want to keep making money, and they know that the only equation is essentially to tell people the truth. But it can't just tell people the truth on a Sunday morning without everything changing. So we're in the midst, again, of a number of stages where everything changes.
So why don't they, we've seen a bunch of different whistleblowers of late come out everyone's got their kind of different versions of a fairly similar story. Why, if you've been given permission to come out and spill the beans, why aren't they backing you up? Why can't they come out and say, yeah, I'm the Brigadier General and I support this message or whatever?
Oh, that's because that's not their job, and we still want plausible deniability. We don't want me to get that much attention.
Okay. Are you part of like the larger disclosure process where you're softening the public basically for this information to come out, and you're one version of that overall?
It is definitely my job to help prepare people socially and psychologically for what disclosure will look like. In a number of ways. That's again why I talk a lot about economics and trade, because what's really going to happen with all of this once we get through it is we're going to just be in this different economic scenario that we've never been in before, and is going to rule. And it's going to be awkward a little bit from here to there because of the way that the civil, social, global military disruption is going to sort of roll through it. But I'm just saying, when it all is said and done, it will be a better, happier, sunny day.
The other whistleblowers of the secret spacecraft that come out, we're not going to mention names. We don't need to. But are they on the same path as you, or are they disinfo? What are your thoughts on these other guys? I mean, they're telling a similar story with just the same amount of evidence as you're presenting. So what makes Randy Cramer the man with the plan here?
Well, I passed a polygraph for starters. Some of them have refused to take polygraphs and have not passed polygraphs.
That's true.
That's true. Lying liars who tell their lying lies. I've passed a polygraph exam for starters. I've also said that I understand it's not so obvious for people, but impersonating an officer is a felony. Lying about medals, awards, certificates, or duty stations is also a felony. Defrauding the public is a felony. Those are all violations of the Universal Code of Military Justice. If I were making up stories in any way, shape, or form, I could be guilty of a list of felonies.
So you'd be willing to get out there in uniform and tell the same stories in uniform?
Oh, I don't have my uniform, so that wouldn't be an option at the moment. If they wanted to give me my uniform, I would be happy to wear it, but that's not how we do this. So I've made it very clear to my position that if anybody seriously questions my veracity, which I know people have, I have told them then they should, contact the FBI and the Marine Corps and report me for fraud, and make sure that they tell them that I will be happy to sit for their polygraph examiner any day of the week, and they can ask me any number of questions for hours at a time. And of course, I would be happy then to go through the hearing process if we want to go through that, because then I get JAG representation, and then I get, to make requests of documentation and so forth, that I know where they are and what they are and all that sort of thing. We could go play that game if we want to. I have been saying that for years, and no one's contacted me to go through that process, so I'm just continuing to presume that they don't want to bother.
Yeah, all right, Randy's putting it on the line. I like it.
Love it.
But I laid it out
the
as
OG.
clear as possible. Like, look, if you think I'm committing a number of felonious crimes by not telling the truth, then, call the feds and tell them I'll sit for their polygraph, and, feel free, go for it. I'm fine with that if we want to go through that process.
All right. Well, next question I have quickly is there's something that you said on an interview with Gaia that was interesting, and it's going to make the conspiracy world go crazy that people are trying to take the control. I think two things are happening. I actually agree with what you said, but it can very easily go wrong. You said kind of two things generally, and correct me if I'm wrong. One, you were saying that the SSP wants to expand their territory around Earth and push it into space to maintain stability, which sounds great on paper. It could clearly be bad. And the other thing you said was a one world currency, which I agree we need to have, but that could be manipulated into a horrible way quickly. So what do you have to say to the people out there who are like, he's just an insider for the government who wants try to take control of the earth and make us all agree with other shit, and expanding military and one world currency is all against us? Because I actually agree with you, but I know that's coming. That pushback is coming.
Sure. So I'll start with, I couldn't give a fuck what people think about me. So people who want to disagree with where they think I'm coming from, or think they understand the logic of the things that I say are not likely to be true, I really couldn't care less, because I've listened to a lot of stupid feedback from people who by the questions or the statements that they make or the accusations that they make, it's very fundamentally clear that they don't understand the subjects that I'm talking about in any way, shape, or form. They have very many